Alrighty, so today we're going to be doing old age makeup on our lovely participant Alicia. Now the first thing you want to do when you're applying any stage makeup ever is to apply astringent. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with your basic foundation. So the foundation that I have, where's my camera? Okay, so the foundation I have here is just a basic Ben Nye cream and a little sponge like this. And we're just going to dab on the foundation. Something to be a little careful with is not to smear your foundation too much when it's a cream-based foundation because it's going to be really easy to tell that it's on there and it's going to look like you put it on with a spatula. Just about done. There we go. So there's Alicia's foundation. And it's important to do the foundation because that way it gives you something to blend into. For instance, if I get too much dark on her face or too much light on her face, it'll be really easy for me to go back and just blend that out into the foundation. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to start tracing the lines on Alicia's face. So one of the things you'll notice about the elderly people is obviously they have wrinkles and they're all sunk in. So the first thing I'm going to use is my Ben Nye brush and my character shadow. And I'm going to ask Alicia to make various faces and just kind of trace in all of the lines on her face. The first one I'm going to do, I'm going to touch your face, Alicia, is do her cheekbones. So I'm just going to find right where her cheekbone ends and find the apple of her cheek and just make a very faint line right underneath that.
Stella is ruining it.
Hey. Okay, and so I'm going to make a very faint line right underneath that. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side of her face. Again, I'm just going to touch to find out where her bone structure is. And you can kind of already see it on the sides of her face. But it's really important to know exactly where the apple is and just get right underneath that. And now I'm going to have her look straight at me and see and check for symmetry, which I actually did a fairly decent job on. Check for symmetry. Okay. So now I'm going to have you smile. And now you'll see Alicia doesn't actually have, most people have really pronounced laugh lines. Alicia doesn't smile a lot, so hers aren't quite, sorry, that's going to get edited out. Alicia's laugh lines aren't quite as pronounced. And it's important when you're doing old age makeup to have them make the biggest expressions possible.
You need to redo that part again. Stella walked in.
Okay, and have them make the biggest expressions as possible, like as big as they can, because that'll make your more defined lines and help you really know where the lines in their face are. Okay, so now I'm going to have you go like this. And I'm going to get this shadow up in here. Now most of the time when you're doing shadow, you're going to blend down, but with the chin, most of the shadow is underneath your lip. So this is the only shadow that's going to get blended up. Alrighty, go ahead and undo. I'm going to put in a little shadow right here. Again, I'm just making everything more pronounced on her face. So I'm going to also get into her labial folds and go and draw a triangle straight down from her eye and then up the sides of her nose. All right, now I'll have you turn so they can see it. See how that's a very, very triangular shape. It's very geometric, doesn't have a lot of room for movement at all, and I'm just going to buff all this in here. And this is obviously going to get blended out when we start blending. But for right now, I just want to draw a triangle right in there. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side of her face. Whoop! And this is going to get all sped up. Ready. Okay, so now I'm going to move up into her eyes. And one of the things you want to be very careful is first that you don't poke the person that you're doing in the eye, which Alicia trusts me, knows I'm not going to do that. And then you want to really be attentive to these rings. And normally we try to hide our bags with our makeup, but now I'm going to accentuate them. So I'm going to have you close your eyes, and I'm going to touch you a little bit. And Alicia has a natural little, we all have a little indent where our eye socket is, and so I'm going to make that a little bit more pronounced. And if I want to later, I can go back and add more. I'm also going to go, I'm going to touch you. I'm going to feel around for where your eyeball ends. Right underneath her actual eyeball. Because once you start to get older, that is not going to be nearly, as I don't want to say plump, it's not going to be, I'm going to re-record this audio part. It's not going to be nearly as full. And so that's going to get, there we go. I'm also going to get up in here because all of this is going to get sunken in. And it's important, everybody thinks about aging under the eye, but a lot of people forget about aging on top of the eye. So now I'm going to have you like wrinkle so you have your crow's feet. Like, there you go. Ooh, and Alicia has lots of beautiful lines out of her eyes. I'm going to be able to make a lot of beautiful crow's feet out of this. So now, again, what you want to remember is that I'm not really adding anything here. I'm just accentuating the lines that are naturally on her face and making them look like they're sunken in more. She shouldn't look like a whole new person when I'm done. She should just look like she's older. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to that eye that I did to this eye. And this now you'll see that I did the crow's feet on both sides, and if you look, her face is actually pretty symmetrical, and you'll want to maintain that kind of symmetry. If I wanted to get really detailed, you'll see she has a little, if you get really close, you can see she has a little fold there. That's just where her eyelid naturally folds. I could accentuate that too. I don't think I'm going to right now. I might go back with a thinner brush and do that later. Okay, so now we're going to move up into her forehead. I'm going to have you wrinkle your forehead. Like, there you go. Look shocked. Now again, Alicia is very young, so she doesn't have a lot of lines here. And the forehead is the one place where it's okay to just kind of go ahead and add lines. Because you're not going, unless you have somebody with a really expressive face, you're not going to find a lot of natural lines there. So if you have somebody like Alicia, once you're done following their natural lines, which to an extent I'm still following her natural lines, you might just have to kind of go in and add some. Like this one I'm going to add one up here too. Okay, relax your face. Now I'm going to have you wrinkle your nose like you smell something funky. Alright, and don't forget about the nose. So we're going to go in here, accentuate some more wrinkles. Have you turn your head. Okay, and you'll notice she has a lovely little divot up here. So we're going to make use of that. Again, remember to try and keep everything symmetrical. Okay, relax. Alrighty. So then we're going to go through here and create some jowls. And all that is just blending this right down through here. And drawing a line right along their jawbone. You're going to blend that down and out. Alright. You'll notice her face almost kind of looks like it has a square on it at this point. Alright. So this is Alicia's low light. I'll actually bring this up here so it's more symmetrical. So now, I can have you look this way. You'll see that this side looks a little bit different from this side. That's okay, it's going to get all blended out. Mistakes happen. So now we're done with Alicia's shadow, and we're going to follow it up with some highlight. I'm going to grab out my second brush and go through. And basically, with the exception, remember we talked about the chin. So the chin is going to be your one exception. So I'm going to go under the highlight up here. Ooh. Alicia has a boyfriend. She has a social life. And just blend this highlight right through here. And that's going to be the only time your highlight goes underneath your low light. The rest of the time, we're basically just going to follow all these lines we've already made and highlight them. Alright, now I'm not going to highlight on top of this line. This line is just kind of a reference for me to show how far to blend down. So I'm not highlighting on top of this, just like I'm not going to try to highlight in here because this is all just a shape of where all the shade should be. But I'm still going to highlight on top of that and on top of her nose. And so the more pronounced of a wrinkle you want, the more contrast you do. It's especially going to be important to get a bunch of highlight underneath the eye to really make those bags pop. So now that we've got all that done, we're gonna take a sponge. It doesn't matter if it's new or not. You can see this one has is the one that I use to buff out my shadow all the time. And we're just gonna start buffing. Now when you're buffing, you want to make sure that you're using, especially with old age makeup, you want to make sure that you're using different sponges for your highlight and your shadow, and you want to make sure that you don't blend them into each other. So if you watch, I'm going to have you look this way, on this cheek I'm blending the shadow down and I'm being very careful not to smudge it too much into the highlight. And then I'm not done blending that, I'm just showing you guys. And then I'm going to go up here and buff this all up. That way, there's a starker contrast, because if you blend them together, you're going to lose all the careful work you just did. So now I'm going to continue, and not pressing too hard, because then you're going to buff it all out and have to start over again. And I'm just going to move in small little circles and buff this all down. Now, if you remember, we filled in everything over here. We didn't do that on our cheek because it's too much for my little brush to handle. So I'm going to take this and just kind of dab it on. And you'll see that that's very thick, and that's okay. You can always buff it out. Err on the side of too much, and if it is too much, buff it out. Don't worry about not having enough effect. Okay. And this is where you can really start to see your work pay off. Because if you remember earlier, it kind of just looked like a bunch of lines, and now you can really see the changes starting to take effect. If you find that your highlight is too weak after you've buffed it up, you can always take your brush and go back in and retrace it. In fact, I think I'm probably going to have to do that on her bags a little bit. And the only thing you don't want to buff out a bunch are the bags. Like I'm just kind of going to dab in here. I should have given Alicia a better warning on that too. Just because those are so intricate and you really want those bags under the eyes very pronounced. So, quick tip for cleaning brushes. I got this from my lovely friend Robert, also my makeup TA. You take old dryer sheets that have been used, and you wet them down a little bit, and you rub out your brushes with them. And it helps work that fabric softener into your brushes and keeps your bristles all nice and clean. And you can definitely feather things out with your brush too. As we get into a little bit more of the detail work here, you'll notice me stopping using the sponge and starting to feather things out with my brushes.